What's up, y'all, and welcome back to 10-Minute Pitch. On this show, I'll review a show and try to pitch it, or anti-pitch it depending on how good or bad it is, in 10 minutes or less. Afterward, I'll give the show a score out of 10 based on my grading criteria, and that score will determine if we'll continue to watch the show. If you guys have a show that you want me to review, make sure you leave it in the comments below. This week we're reviewing Housing Complex C, an anime released in 2022. I'm your host, Flux, guys. Here's all my social medias, you guys know the deal, and without further ado, time starts now. Housing Complex C occurs in an apartment complex called Housing Complex C. That's pretty self-explanatory. Our main protagonist is Kimmy, a bright, cheerful little girl who tries to keep her community together as an increasingly dangerous threat looms over the housing complex. After a swarm of immigrants get hired to help run the building, strange things start occurring that break the bonds of the complex's residents. Using the help of her elders, Kimmy must find a way to solve the mystery of what or who is tearing her precious Housing Complex C apart. Okay, now that I gave you guys the synopsis, I know I usually start with the plot for these videos, but there's a lot to unpack, so we're gonna save that for last. Getting to the characters, there's not much of note. I could go down the line and tell you about Koba or Yoshikin or whoever else, I don't know, this guy. I'll tell you about this guy, but it doesn't really matter. Kimmy literally does a roll call in the first 5 minutes of the show.
Hi Taka, and Koba, and Yoshikin, and Momo, and Wada.
And even after that, I still couldn't tell you who's who. This anime has a whopping 4 episodes of content, so not only are the writers rushing the plot to get along, but they're also not giving their characters much personality. Koba is the guy who feeds the audience the plot. Yuri is the seemingly innocent but secretly malicious girl next door. Rubel is one of the immigrant workers who just wants to fit in. Wada is just an actual racist.
Why'd it have to be foreigners?
Okay, Indiana Jones, like relax, Jesus. Immigrants, why'd it have to be immigrants? These aren't actually characters, they're just storytelling devices that help move the story along. They spout their lines and then you never think about them again once the scene is over. Again, the show is only 4 episodes long, so cutting corners to tell a story is inevitable. In fact, I feel like these 4 episodes could have been given 20 more minutes to make, I don't know, like a movie out of this idea? But that doesn't excuse the bland and blank canvases we're left with for the duration of the show. The animation here is passable. I mean, I haven't watched much anime, as I've spoken at length about in my Neo Yokio video. You guys should go check that out, I think it's pretty good, but I don't know, it's pretty. But for anime standards, it looks anime, I don't know. It's not particularly dazzling, but it's not offensive to look at. All the characters look pretty oh my god, he's hideous.
What the hell is even that?
I don't know why everyone else looks normal and then there's this Igor looking abomination. Jesus. Get him off the screen. Nah, I can't look at this anymore. The voice acting is also pretty passable. All the technical aspects of Housing Complex C are decent, which allows us as an audience to really hone in and focus on the story, the real meat and potatoes of the show. Now, I tried to be pretty vague about the plot up to this point, as these videos are meant to be a basic overview of the series so you guys can watch it for yourselves, but I cannot continue this review without talking about how stupid the goddamn plot is. If you want to skip the spoilers and still hear the rest of the review, you can skip to this point on screen now. Massive trigger warning for xenophobia and themes of death and suicide because, yeah, this show might have a hand-fisted plot, but it sure does get graphic. 3, 2, 1, last chance. Okay, let's go. So the main storyline of Housing Complex C is that after the group of immigrants move in, strange ritualistic events start transpiring around the apartment. Things like dead fish everywhere and dog heads inside their food pots, you know, typical wacky teen stuff.
Being a teenager and all.
Initially, it seems like either a haunted entity or a prankster is leaving these disgusting tributes behind, but eventually the sacrifices make their way to Kimmy's door, giving these atrocities a target. Frightened and afraid, the residents and the immigrants try to work together to figure out who has it out for Kimmy. Oh no, sorry, that would make sense. Instead, they immediately turn to getting racist with each other and start pointing the blame.
How dare you accuse us? We never wanted your kind here to begin with!
Listen, you're the ones who accused first! We have a right to be angry! A Japanese person had to do it!
Wow, I thought the Olympics were later this month. That's an Olympic-sized jump. Now hear me out, while I can't justify racism of any kind, the immigrants have a bit of an excuse because Wada, the cranky old grandma type, has been making obscene and racist comments for their entire visit, and they've also been getting blamed for all the animal deaths up to this point. But in terms of the story, it's a huge jump to go from, man, it sure is interesting how we haven't had a lot of foreign visitors at our complex, to these Mexican motherfuckers need to get the hell off my property or so help me God, we're gonna build that wall.
Will not pay for the fucking wall.
The show tries to give us a rough concept of time and also hints at a later plot point with a calendar that's shown periodically, but because again, there are no actual character developments or exciting events that happen between these days, the timeline of Housing Complex C still feels very rushed. By the time we get to the final episode and we follow these characters for about 2 weeks if the calendar is correct, we still don't know anything about anyone. We don't know anything about these new parents who moved in and what their deal is. We don't know anything about these poor immigrants except that they're supposed to be token immigrants. We know nothing about our main character except that she's a girl. I know I made the joke before about, oh, these characters' details shouldn't be able to fit on a sticky note, but this time it feels like they just wrote that shit on a name tag. Anyway, the big plot twist of the show is that the new family who brought the immigrants in is evil, and they've been the ones leaving the fish piles and stuff behind. They did it in the name of their god, Kuzululu, because they knew that their opposing god, Iyoyo Loki, was alive. And the animals are basically the ultimate FU to the god and any of its believers. Think of it as like a Kyogre and Groudon type situation for any of my Pokemon fans out there. And big surprise, it also turns out that sweet old Kimmy is the vessel for said god. Or she is the god, same thing. Tomato nuclear bomb, We found all this out from Taka, the audience surrogate, or more realistically, since he doesn't have any personality, the guy who just happens to have the most lines, who kills himself because of the pressure. Honestly, despite how much of a blank slate he is, it's still pretty sad to see Taka go. He genuinely acted the best he could to Kimmy and the complex's residents, and he was one of the first people to rule against ganging up on the immigrants despite them looking like easy targets. Taka relays all this info to Koba, another blank slate character, who then goes to die. He goes to die, I guess. Here lies another issue with Housing Complex C's pacing. I don't care about anyone, so why would their deaths be an issue? It's pretty apparent by the setup and slow fall of Koba that this death in particular is supposed to make the audience go, oh my god, he's dead! But this death doesn't feel any more impactful than the ones we've had up to this point. The story needed them dead, so now they're gone. Oh no. Are we at 10 minutes yet? I'm ready to quit, man. Fuck. The show sucks, man. So yeah, the new family is evil, but surprise, Kimmy already knew this because she's a god herself. She's kept the housing complex in a bubble separate from the rest of the world, seemingly looping the same story for years, hoping that humankind will learn from their mistakes eventually and, not be racist. Kimmy tells Yuri that she and her family are stupid. Kimmy kills Yuri in the most violent way possible. And after Khan recites some ancient blah de blah, the cycle is broken and Khan is left to go free. All's well that ends well, right? Well... Okay, 2 things. First of all, why is Kimmy acting scared like she doesn't know what's going on? I guess you can say, oh, she doesn't want people to know she's a god, to ruin the experiment. But there's several scenes where she's talking to her quote-unquote mom, which is just some little embryo in a jar.
Huh? I seem worried? That's just an optical illusion, Mommy.
Who are you fooling if not just the audience? Because we think that Kimmy's talking to her mom and that she's sick or something, and that's why we haven't seen her throughout the duration of the show. But to Kimmy the god, she's literally just talking to some strange being who she ends up crushing later with no regard. It's the same as when she discovers a nerdy guy who's like investigating the ritualistic happenings. She acts all surprised when she finds that he's turned to moss, but according to her, she killed anyone who got too close to the truth. So why is she acting like she doesn't know how he ended up like that? You did it! Secondly, I guess I get the message of Moss being eternal and Kimmy being merciful to those who cared for her by turning them to moss. But why did everyone have to die except for Khan? What about her caretakers like Koba and Taka? What about the immigrants who were exploited and harassed the entire time? What about all the complex members who had nothing to do with this racist story? We're supposed to see her saving Khan as an act of kindness, but in actuality, she just picked a random person to survive, and I guess ugly ass Khan was the lucky winner. Now he gets to reintegrate into society where he definitely won't have any mental health problems after emigrating to a new country, being stabbed in the hand, getting his ass kicked by a wife and her husband, and nearly getting killed by a god in the form of a little girl. So yeah, the plot kinda sucks and it's the backbone of the entire show. There's not really any meaningful characters that you can stick to and be like, well, at the very least this character is entertaining if the plot sucks. This show sacrifices everything to tell a story, and that story is not succinct in any form. I don't know what's up with the production of this show and why they only got 4 episodes. I don't know if it's like a test running thing, but that was clearly not enough time. Okay, that's time. I get it, because the show didn't have enough time. And let's get to the score. With a plot so half-baked that it's bloody raw, gluten-free rice cakes for characters, non-offensive animation, voice actors that are way too good for this show, and slightly entertaining moments in between large swaths of confusion, Housing Complex C is beyond a mixed bag. I'll also add up the episode score average and give my favorite episode of the season. I debated giving it to the last one since it's the only one with any kind of action, but the bulk of the plot gets trauma dumped on the audience before you get to watch the bloody chaos. So the third episode, I guess? It's the only episode in which I can see the creator's vision. The racism plot is pretty visceral, like I said, because the pacing is all over the place, but with some more episodes, I can see this one being a gem. That rounds out our total score to a mind-blowing 4.6 out of 10, which honestly is higher than I thought it'd be. I don't know, even though the plot was god-awful, it was mildly entertaining. Like, even though it sucked and I probably wouldn't watch this show again unless I was making fun of it with friends, it's only 4 episodes, so it's not like you're wasting a lot of time. I feel like a reboot is in order, but the show had such a middling reception when it first came out that I doubt anyone's begging to hear this story again. Oh well, you can't win them all. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to donate to my coffee, it'd be a huge help. No amount's too small. Really helps me get these videos out, gives me a bit more motivation. Let me know what you guys want to see next. Leave your comments down below. Like I said, I have a lot of shows in my queue, but I'm going to try to get to all of them in a timely fashion. I don't have anything else to say. Thank you guys for watching again, and that's my time.